Hello and welcome back to LearnLinuxTV. In today's video, what I'm going to do is show you ThinLinc. More specifically, what we're going to do is walk through the process of installing it as well as using it. Now, if you've never heard of this solution before, ThinLinc is a remote desktop server built on open source technologies. You can use ThinLinc to access a Linux-based computer or server from anywhere. For example, you can access your company's Linux server from your home office, or even access your home computer from a remote location while you're on the go. ThinLinc itself consists of a server component as well as client software. You'll install the server component on your Linux server, and to access ThinLinc from that server, you'll install the client software on your workstation. The ThinLinc client itself supports Windows, macOS, and, of course, Linux. And you could even go as far as to use ThinLinc to build your very own Linux terminal server, and that's a really fun project. In this video, what I'm going to do is go over the process of setting up ThinLinc, both on the server as well as a workstation. And I'm going to show you the process on Linux, macOS, as well as Windows, so no matter what you happen to be running on your local workstation, you'll be covered. And by the end of the video, you'll be all set and ready to go. I'll have time codes in the description down below, so you can go right to the section that most interests you, and it's going to be a fun video. And you know what? Let's just go ahead and get started. Before we go any further, let's go ahead and see ThinLinc in action. I'm going to show you how to install it later in the video, but for right now, let's just see what it looks like so that way once you do get it installed, you'll know what to expect. As I mentioned during the intro, there's the server component as well as a client application that you can use on your computer to connect to the server. So for this demo, I have two Linux-based machines that I'll connect to via ThinLinc. The first is a headless remote desktop server that I built on Linode, and the second example is a standard Ubuntu PC. And I'm going to show the process of connecting to these particular servers, so that way you'll see what the connection process looks like. So first, let's connect to the terminal server that I built. So here I've already opened the ThinLinc client. So what I'm going to do is first type the server address, either the IP address or the fully qualified domain name. In my case, I created the server as thinlink.home-network.io. And again, IP addresses work here as well if you don't have a DNS server like I have. Just type one or the other, and then in the next field here, we're going to type the username for the user on the remote end. It autofilled J in my case, which just so happens to be correct. In the third field, what we're going to do is type the password to the server, the password for the user on the remote end. So I'll type that in right now in my case. And then what we could do is click connect right here, and that'll get us connected to our session. But before I do that though, I just want to show you guys a few more things. So what I'll do is click on options. And let's go ahead and take a look at these options right here. So the first tab, and I'm just going to go from left to right, we have the display mode. So it defaults to windowed. You could also do full screen. So for example, full screen on the current monitor, or all monitors, or on selected monitors. I'm just going to leave mine on windowed. Depending on how you prefer to see the remote session on your end, that'll determine which option you ultimately choose. It's just a matter of preference. So let's go to local devices. So here we have several checkboxes. And what these checkboxes actually correlate to is which local resources we want to make available from the server. So for example, we have support for sound, serial ports, drives. We could also make our printer available there as well, and also smart card readers. I'm going to leave these options at their defaults, but I just wanted you to be aware that these options do exist. And then let's move on to optimization. Now, these are more advanced options that are going to be outside of the scope of this video, but if you had any reason to tweak these, and if you had a reason to do so, you would already be familiar with these options, so I'm just going to leave these at their defaults and move on to the next section. On this tab, we have the Security tab. Now, ThinLinc is going to use SSH by default, and that's why it auto-selected port 22, the default SSH port, unless you actually changed the port number for the SSH server on the remote end, then your port will also be 22. It also has a selection for port 80 if you happen to be using that. Or if your SSH server is available on a different port, then you could choose this option, this third option here, and you could type in whatever port number you would like for this field. For the authentication method, it's going to default to password. If you have SSH keys set up, you could go ahead and choose that option. Same with Smart Card as well. But I'm going to leave this at the default right here. Anyway, let's move on to the last tab here. And we have an option here to automatically start an application once we log into our session. So for example, we could auto start Firefox if we wanted to do so. We also have some additional screen options here. But anyway, I'm going to cancel out of this one here. Anyway, let's go ahead and connect to the server. So I'll click connect and let's see what happens. And so far so good. We have this little window right here, which is showing us a welcome screen of sorts, a welcome screen that we can customize if we choose to do so. But in my case, what I'm going to do is just click OK. And right here, we have a Mate desktop. So as you can see, what I could do is just access the applications menu right here. And then I can launch any of the applications that I have installed on this particular computer. So for example, I could bring up a file manager here. And then I could navigate the Linux file system right here from within this session, or whatever other application that I might want to run. Now you've just seen the process when it comes to connecting to a terminal server. What I'm going to do now is just show you an Ubuntu desktop running in ThinLinc. I went ahead and installed the desktop version of Ubuntu in a VM to show you the process. So what I'll do is show you that process right now. So the host name is going to be different, of course, different server. And for this one, I called it Ubuntu-staging, same domain. And then for the password, I'll go ahead and type that in right now. So let's go ahead and connect. I'll click connect. Let's see what happens. So we have the same welcome screen here. I'll click forward. And we're going to be connecting to an Ubuntu desktop. So I'll click OK. And check it out. We are actually connected to my Ubuntu desktop. Of course, I have some applications that are set to automatically start here, so we'll ignore those. I'll get these closed out here. But as you can see, I have a remote desktop right here. I'm connected to an Ubuntu installation, and just like I could do with any other Ubuntu installation, I can start launching applications. And you can see some of the applications that I have installed here on this desktop. So I'll open up Firefox. And as you can see, I'm able to visit the website for this channel. And here it is. So as you can see, it's working just fine. So now I can access my Ubuntu desktop through ThinLinc. How cool is that? Now real quick, I just want to talk a little bit about licensing. How much does ThinLinc cost? And how many concurrent sessions can you have? Well, let's talk about that. The first thing to know is that you can totally use ThinLinc for free, but there also is a paid version as well if you happen to need it. ThinLinc uses what's called a concurrent user model. This means that licensing is based on how many people are using the solution at the same time, rather than having to purchase a license for anyone that might use it. The first 10 concurrent users are completely free, and for some of you, the free version might be all you need. There's also a standard subscription package available, as well as a premium version. The main benefit with these packages is what kind of support you have access to. The standard version gives you access to email support, while the premium subscription gives you access to telephone support as well. With this tutorial, I'm going to focus on the free version, but if you end up needing one of the paid packages, then take a look at the features on Cendio's pricing page for more information on what's available. Anyway, in the next section, I'm going to walk you through the process of setting up ThinLinc on your Linux server, and then after that, I'll show you how to connect via the ThinLinc client. Alright, so in this section, what we're going to do is set up the server component of ThinLinc. Basically, this is what you'll do on the device that you want to connect to from your workstation or your laptop. So you could actually set up the server component on a workstation if you want to connect to your computer, for example, or a terminal server if you're connecting to that. But what we're going to do right now is just walk through the process. So let's see what it looks like. Anyway, right here, what we have on the screen is the download page for ThinLinc. We have the client downloads right here, which we'll be getting to in a future section. Actually, that'll be in the next section right after this. But anyway, if we scroll down, we have the ThinLinc server bundle, and we could download it by clicking this button right here. And that takes us to this page right here. And then there's going to be some fields here that the download page requires that you fill out. So just go through that process and answer those questions, and then you click the download button down here at the bottom. Now, I've already downloaded the server bundle on my end, so I don't have to go through this process right here. But basically, the download links will be in the description down below, and you'll visit this particular download link to download the server component. Once you have that, what we'll do is we'll install that on the workstation or terminal server that you're trying to connect to. Now here I have my Proxmox installation, and I actually have this virtual machine right here that I've set up, and I'm going to show you the process on this virtual machine. So nothing that I'm going to be showing you is specific to Proxmox or virtualization at all. You could go through the same process on a physical machine, doesn't really matter. Anyway, what I'm going to do is click on console in my case, and that's going to give me this console window. So let's see if I can make this full screen. That should give us a little bit more real estate here. Anyway, I'll click on my username. We could pretend that I'm logging into an actual Ubuntu desktop. Well, this is actually a real Ubuntu desktop, but anyway. And here we have an Ubuntu desktop. So anyway, since I've already downloaded the server bundle, what I'll do is just open up a file manager. And then I'll go to wherever it is the download is stored. I have it here in my downloads directory, and it's a zip file. So what I'll do is extract it. And now I shouldn't need this anymore. Anyway, I'll click on the folder right here that came from the download. And right here we have all of the components of the installer. So here we have install server. So what I should be able to do is right click and run it as a program. And I'll go ahead and minimize everything here. And right here, we have the installer for the server bundle. And again, this is something that you'll want to install on the device that you're connecting to. Anyway, I'll click forward. And it's going to need some additional components here. So it's letting me know that it plans on installing these additional components. And that's fine. So I'll click forward. And it looks like all of those packages were installed successfully, so I'll click forward again. The box for running the ThinLinc setup is checked, and that's a good thing, so I'll click continue, and that should launch. And now we have the setup wizard. So I'll click forward here. I'll accept the agreement, standard installation stuff so far. And this is going to be a master server. And of course, there could be agent servers if you want to spread the resource load, just like the verbiage says right here, but we're not going to get into that in this video. Let's just keep the selection on master, and then we'll click forward. It's been fully analyzed. Click forward to continue. No problem, I'll do that. And it's going to need some additional packages, and I'll give it permission to do exactly that to get those installed. So it looks like it's going to install one more additional package. Looks like something for LDAP associated with Python, so standard stuff. Click forward. And it looks like everything has been installed, so forward again. And right here, we'll type in our email address for administrative messages. So just type whatever your administrative email happens to be. So I'll type in mine right here. And then I'll click forward. And then right here, it's going to ask us to set up a password for the admin user. So I'll just type in the password that I want for that user right here. And then we'll click forward. And we're going to leave these settings right here at their defaults. It's especially helpful if you want to be able to access printers, for example. Anyway, I'll click forward. And I don't actually have any printer queues or anything set up here, so it makes sense to me that it wasn't able to configure that. Anyway, I'll click forward. And we'll also need the AppArmor configuration here when it comes to Ubuntu in my case. So that's actually normal. We'll click forward. And it looks like that's all set. And now it looks like it's starting the ThinLinc services. And well, that's already done. All the services have been configured and started successfully. So good sign so far. So we'll click forward and then we'll close. So now we have the server component right here set up and ready to go. In the next section, what I'll do is start to show you guys how to set up the client components The client components are what you're going to use to actually connect to this remote desktop. Wherever you installed the server component, we'll be connecting to that. But you're going to need a client. And again, there's clients for Windows, macOS, as well as Linux. And you'll start to see that process right now as we transition into the client installation side, which is what we're going to do next. So let's go ahead and see what the process looks like when it comes to installing the ThinLinc client on a Linux distribution. Here on the screen right now, what you're seeing is my Pop! OS installation. You don't have to run Pop! OS on your end if you're using a different distribution. It doesn't matter because all the most popular distributions are supported. Anyway, to get us started, what I'm going to do is open up a web browser. It shouldn't matter which one you use. And what I'm going to do is go to cendio.com/ and then thinlink/download. And these URLs will be in the description down below, so don't worry if the text is too small to read right here. You could just click on the link in the description and that should work just fine. Anyway, I'll press enter. And here we have the download page for ThinLinc. As you can see right here, we have a download for various distributions, as well as macOS and Windows. In other sections in this video, I will show you the process of installing the client on Windows and macOS as well. But right now, we're going to get this set up on Linux. So first of all, let's talk about the various versions that are available for Linux and why there's a few different versions for Linux, and that'll help you determine which one you should actually download. So here we have the RPM version, and the RPM version is for distributions that use the RPM package format. Those distributions include, but aren't limited to, Fedora, CentOS, Alma Linux, Rocky Linux, and a number of others. Basically, any distribution that utilizes the RPM package format is a distribution that's going to require this version right here. We have a 32-bit version as well as a 64-bit version. Now, for most of you that are using a standard laptop or desktop, then you'll probably want the 64-bit version. But to be on the safe side, to make sure that's what you need, what you could do is open up a command prompt. And here's mine right here. I just make this a little bit bigger. And then what you could run is uname-m, just like that. And that'll tell you whether you are running on 32-bit or 64-bit when it comes to your Linux distribution. As you can see right here, I'm on x86 64, which is 64-bit. So in that case, I'm going to need the 64-bit download. But in my case, I'm actually not using a distribution that utilizes the RPM package format. The dev version, which is the second one here on the list, that's for those of you that are running on distributions such as Debian, Ubuntu, Linux Mint, Pop! OS, MX Linux, and others. Basically, any distribution that utilizes the deb package format, you'll go ahead and use this format for that. So what I'm going to do is download this version right here. After all, that is the correct one for my Linux distribution, so I'll click on that. And it's going to go ahead and download the client, as you see right here. And the client itself is fairly small, so I would expect the download to happen pretty quickly. And in addition to the 64-bit deb version, I'm also going to download the 64-bit tar.gz version, which is this version right here. And this version here is a bit more advanced. It's for those of you that are running on a different distribution, something that doesn't use the deb or RPM package formats. You could think of this as a more universal installation. I'm going to download that one as well because I will be showing you that process. So now I have two clients downloaded. I have both the deb version as well as the tarball downloaded here. So let's go ahead and see what the process looks like for installing the downloaded application to our computer. So what we're going to do is just open up a file manager here, and we're going to go into our downloads directory or wherever it is that your downloads typically end up in. And what I'm going to attempt to do is click on the deb version right here. For most of you, that should work just fine. Some distributions handle this better than others though, so let's see what happens when I click on it. So we have the application installer for Pop! OS open here, and what I'm going to do is click the install button, and then I'll go ahead and type in my password here. And you know what? It's already installed. It worked just fine. Now, if your distribution doesn't support the GUI or graphical method for installing a package, then what you could do is just insult the documentation that came with your distribution of choice to find out the preferred way of installing a package, such as one you might download from ThinLinc's website. But for me, it looks like it's already installed. So what I'll do is attempt to open it. So I'll scroll down here. And I'm not sure why I have dark text on dark here, but that's another story altogether. And here we have the ThinLinc client. So I'll click on it, and it's ready to go. So as you can see, I have the application here, and I have some scaling issues on my computer currently, so we're going to ignore that. But we have the ThinLinc client, it's right there, and it's ready to go. Now let's go back to the file manager, and let's talk about this tarball right here. Pretty much every Linux distribution knows what to do with this particular type of file. And you could think of this as a type of zip file. Now, of course, it's more than that, but I'm going to simplify it down to that just to keep it, well, simple. But anyway, what we're going to do is we're going to right-click on this, and we're going to extract it. And this is only for those of you that can't use an RPM package or a deb package. I just want to show you the process for setting this up. Anyway, once we have it extracted, we'll click on it, and we'll see that we have 3 directories right here. Now, if I open up a terminal, now if we go into the opt directory, and then the ThinLinc directory underneath that, which you won't have yet if you haven't already installed ThinLinc. Remember, I installed the deb version just a few minutes ago. But anyway, when I go into that directory, you can see that we have 3 directories. We have bin, etc, and lib as well, which are the same directories that we have here in the file manager. And that's not a coincidence. So to install the ThinLinc client, for those of you that can't use a deb or RPM package, what you could do is create this folder, the /opt/ThinLinc folder. You create that folder, and then you copy these folders inside of it. And the way that that would play out is you would run sudo mkdir, and then you'd create the directory /opt/ThinLinc. Just like that. Now that directory already exists on my end, so I don't need to create that folder here. But I just wanted to give you guys that command in case you needed it. Anyway, once you've done that, what you would do is you would type the mv command, then you would type the path to wherever you extracted your ThinLinc download to. In my case, that was in the downloads directory, in my home directory. And then in here, we have 3 different folders, bin, etc, and lib. So what you could do is move those folders or copy those folders, whichever you wanted to do, into the /opt/ThinLinc directory, just like that. Now again, that's the advanced version. The preferred method for installing this client is to use one of the packages. That's what I recommend. Use either the RPM package or the deb package, depending on which distribution you're running, and then you would only run the archive again if you have a distribution that doesn't support that. Either way, in the applications directory, we have the ThinLinc client right here, so it's installed and ready to go here on my Linux workstation. But next, I'm going to start to show you how to install the ThinLinc client on other operating systems, starting with Windows. So now let's see what the process looks like on Windows. So just like always, what I'll do is open up a web browser. Doesn't matter which one. And then what we'll do is go to cendio.com, and then /ThinLinc, and then /download. And all of these links will be right in the description below. And then here on the download page, what we're going to do is find the Windows version, which we see right here at the top. So I'll click on that. And then we can open it up. And then here we have the installation window. So I'll click Next. I'll accept the agreement. And so far, it's probably just like any other Windows software install that you've seen before. And then I'll click Install. And then I'll click Finish. And here you go. Here's the ThinLinc client in all its glory, installed and ready to go. All right, so let's see the process on macOS. So what we're going to do is open up a web browser, doesn't matter which one. And what we'll do is go to the same URL. So that was cendio.com/ThinLinc/download. And here we see all the various clients that are available. So for Mac users, what you'll do is click right here where it shows macOS. We're going to download the 64-bit version. It's the only version anyway. So I'll click on that. And I will allow the download. It should happen pretty quick. We see it down here, and it's actually already done. And here we have the client. It's an ISO file, so I'll click on that. And we can see the disk image for the ThinLinc client is right here on the desktop. So what I'll do is double click on that. And here's the actual client. So I will drag that into the applications folder, just like you would any other application on macOS. So I'll go ahead and open up the Launchpad right here. And then I believe it'll be on the last page. And here it is. So I'll click on ThinLinc client. Let's go ahead and open it. And then here we have the client. So we shouldn't need this anymore. We can go ahead and eject the ThinLinc client download. And at that point, you can delete the client download, or you could archive it for future use. But anyway, we have the ThinLinc client right here, and it's ready to go. Earlier in the video, I showed you guys what it looks like to connect to a terminal server as well as a Linux desktop, such as an Ubuntu desktop. But how exactly did I set up the terminal server? Well, what I'm going to do right now is walk you through exactly what I did to set that up. Now, what you're going to need to get started is some sort of Linux server. And what I'm going to do is use Ubuntu 22.04 as an example. And if you want to follow along with me, then that's what I recommend as well. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not that ThinLinc won't work with other distributions of Linux. It's just that this is the one that I've tested the process with and is the one that I'm going to use to show you the process. So once you have that set up, then what you're going to do is open up a terminal on that server. In my case, I'll just use SSH. That's the default way of connecting to a Linux server to administer it anyway. And I decided to call the server ThinLinc, and it's located at thinlink.home-network.io. So let's connect. I'll say yes, I want to absolutely connect to that server. And now I'm logged in. Now, when it comes to setting up a terminal server, I highly recommend the Mate desktop. The Mate desktop is not only lightweight, but it also understands the concept of a remote desktop itself and is able to adjust itself to fit that particular use case. Anyway, I'll run sudo apt update to update the package repository index. And now that that's done, what I'm going to do is run sudo apt install, and then the package is going to be mate-desktop-environment. And yes, I do understand, for those of you that aren't already aware, that it's spelled as mate, but it's pronounced as mate. We Linux people certainly have interesting pronunciations for many different things, but we're not going to get into that. Anyway, by installing this package, we are installing the Mate desktop environment. This is known as a meta package, and it's going to depend on a bunch of other packages. So that way we don't have to memorize all the packages that we need to install. We could just install this one thing, which is going to provide us with a GUI that we can use for our ThinLinc session. So I'll press enter. And then I'll press enter again to accept the defaults. It's going to install a bunch of packages here. And what I'll do is just let this run, and then I'll be right back as soon as it's finished. And if this message appears right here, we could just simply press enter to accept the defaults. It's just letting us know that several services are going to be restarted as a part of this process, and that's totally fine. So again, I'll press enter. And there we go. The process is finished. Mate has been installed. But there's one more thing that we need to do, a tweak, basically, to make sure that Mate works properly. And my understanding is that this is actually due to a bug in Ubuntu itself. So it could be possible that by the time you're seeing this video, that what I'm going to show you isn't necessary anymore. But it also doesn't hurt anything. And as of the time I'm recording the video, this is required, at least in Ubuntu. So what we're going to do is type nano. We just need to edit a text file. And we'll type tilde, which is shorthand for our home directory, if you didn't already know. Then slash, and then .profile. So we're going to edit the .profile file that actually lives in our home directory. So I'll press enter. And what we're going to do is scroll all the way to the very bottom of this file. And I'll press enter to give it a line space. Then I'll type a comment. That's what the hash symbol here is for, if you didn't already know. And then what we're going to do is type export, dbus underscore session, then underscore bus underscore address, and then in double quotes, Unix, colon, and then path equals $xdg underscore runtime underscore dir /bus, just like that. So what you could do is pause the screen here if you want to take some time to jot this down, or you could check out the blog post for this particular video, which will be linked down below. And what you could do is copy the configuration from that article, so that way you don't have to worry about typos. But anyway, now that we have this here, I'm going to save the file. In the case of Nano, Control-O, and then Enter, and then Control-X to exit out. At this point, we can disconnect from SSH and close the terminal. We're all set. As for how you connect to the server that we've just set up, well, I showed you that earlier in the video. So I've just built the actual terminal server that I used in the beginning of the video. But anyway, at this point, you should have everything set up and ready to go. So there you go. In today's video, we set up ThinLinc. I showed you the process of setting up the server side of things as well as the client component. And at this point, you should have your very own ThinLinc installation set up and ready to go. And I hope you enjoy it. ThinLinc is awesome. I really do enjoy this application. It's very useful. And let me know what you guys think of ThinLinc down in the comments below. Anyway, in the meantime, I'm going to get back to editing some awesome videos for you guys. I have some great things coming, so make sure you subscribe. So that way you'll be the first to see these videos as soon as they come out, and I'll see you in the next video.